It can be super frustrating when you talk with women. This is what Wheat Waffles went through and it left him heated.
And then she just ignores me.
So let's cover what happened, what he did wrong, and what he could have done better. And after that, I will give you a solid framework about how to avoid these types of situations. If you're wondering why I know this, it's because I've set up over 1,000 dates for myself and other people. But before we get into that, let me tell you about his interesting experiment. Wheat Waffles started an experiment seeing if he could succeed with online dating.
For the past 7 days, I've been swiping and messaging on Tinder non-stop. Also, I could see how many dates I could get as an average guy in a short amount of time.
Before we talk about his final verdict, let's talk about the numbers. In total, in 1 week's time, he got 24 numbers only from Tinder. He didn't use Bumble or Hinge. Those girls all agreed to go on a date with him, but in the end, he only got 9 fully scheduled dates. Obviously, this isn't a great closing rate, so what went wrong? For that, we should take a look at his conversations. The first interesting lesson comes from Catherine. You see, when you meet someone on an app, the level of comfort is quite low. You don't really know who this person is and what to expect from them. But there's also platform comfort. The comfort you build up on one platform does not fully translate to the next. The best example of this is when you meet them in real life. You might have been texting for a very long time and it's super comfortable, but once you meet in person in real life, things are different. All the comfort can be wiped out in 1 single minute. This is also the case with Catherine. Wheat Waffles instantly goes for the close once off the dating app. This in general is a big mistake. It's better to send at least 2 to 5 messages before going for the close. For some women this works fine, but for others they need more time. And rushing it when they need more time often results in them not wanting to date you at all. For the second big mistake, we should look at this conversation with Kaylee. You see, when you first start interacting, flirting and texting with women, something happens. There's this push-pull dynamic. We can also observe this dynamic even when you meet new people that you want to be friends with, for example. This push-pull dynamic needs to be in balance. When you go overboard, you lose everything. You can't push the person away too much because they will hate you. But you can also not pull super hard and expect the person to see you at the same level. If you pull too hard, they will see you as a fan. And that's what Wheat Waffles did wrong. Let's look at his messages that he has sent. It's been great talking to you, Kayla. That's pulling. And I'd really like to know you better. That's even more pulling. If you fancy meeting me for a coffee in the next couple of days, I'd be super excited. That's just a pulling overload. At this point, it sounds like Wheat Waffles is 5 minutes away from asking her to marry her and he hasn't even met her. So how do we expect her to reply? Yeah, I think that would be nice. Sure, why not? Sure, why not? That's what you say when a person in the friend zone asks you to go for a restaurant for a free dinner. With these messages, he made sure that she knew she had to put in 0 effort in order for her to get him. At this point, she has him in her pocket. Even though this message is quite bad, there's actually a part I quite like. You see, when he says, "I know this fantastic place in Central Brum," this is a good line. This creates mystery regarding the place and it states that it's not just a random Starbucks. But will this have any effect? Of course not. He already shot himself in the legs 3 times. We can't expect after all of those horrible messages to have any success. But what's interesting is in the video, Wheat Waffles states that her reply was fake.
She just stops responding and there was no messages after this. She just ignores it. So this message here, where she actually agreed to meet up, you could tell it was just fake and she was just trying to be impolite.
But that's not what happened. What happened is that the girl lost all attraction to him pulling and pulling and pulling. Before we look at the closing framework, we have to look at his conversation with Becca. In his conversation with Becca, he made a spinal mistake. You see, this is a common theme. When you want to meet up with somebody, you need 2 things. Both parties want to meet and both parties have time. In this scenario, both parties wanted to meet, but Becca didn't have time. Before I tell you how to properly manage this, let's take a look at what Wheat Waffles did. So Becca told Wheat Waffles she'll be out of town, but Wheat Waffles still tries to instantly close her. This is what is happening. She'll be traveling in a total different area at a wedding. You know what's on her mind at that time? Correct, everything except that guy that has sent her a couple of messages back and forth on a dating app. In this situation, the best thing is to do is to wait a couple of days. When she's back or almost back, we can re-engage in the conversation and move forwards to the close. But it's often best to first have a little bit of a chit-chat. For example, how was the wedding? Did you catch the flowers? And after that, you can go back to the closing. Now we've seen all the mistakes he has made, and these mistakes were quite big. Big enough for 13 out of the 20 girls to not want to date him anymore. And even though his closing was horrible, he still got 9 dates in 1 week. This made him conclude that online dating was actually a great way to find girls.
The answer is undeniably yes.
And we have to agree with that. But let's make sure that you get double the results, and let me teach you the closing framework. Our closing framework consists out of 3 steps. If you follow these super easy steps correctly, your closing will go through the roof. But maybe more importantly, the amount of rejections you will get goes down drastically. Let's start with step 1, the general close. The goal of this is to get her to agree with the idea of meeting up. Before we agree on exact time and day, we want to make sure that she wants to date us. So we do this by saying something along the lines of this. Anyway, Becca, seems like we'll get along pretty good. Maybe we should go on a cute date. She'll most likely respond with something along the lines of, yeah, sounds good. Before I explain the rest of the closing framework, make sure to also close me by clicking the subscribe button and the like button so you can learn more online dating techniques to make your life easier. After this, we go to step 2. As we stated before, we need 2 things to schedule a date. 2 parties that want to date and 2 parties that have time. So let's find out about the second part with step 2, finding out availability. We do this by saying something along the lines of, how is your schedule looking like this weekend? She knows you're asking about dating and will tell you exactly when she is available. Now we have all the elements that are required. Step 3 is going for the exact close. This is super easy, and we can even use a line that Waffles was using. So you can say the following: let's have a cute date Friday at 4 p.m. I know this fantastic place in Central Brom. Before you know it, you're going to have an amazing date. If you make sure to avoid the mistakes that Waffles made and apply this 3-step closing framework, you're going to do great. If you're in the middle of a conversation and you run into the issue of a girl not replying, just like what Waffles had, make sure to watch our video about why she's ghosting you and what you can do about it.